Welcome to the Turnaround Marriage Podcast, where biblical wisdom and neuroscience come together to bring hope and healing to struggling Christian couples.
We're Scott and Rachel, a husband and wife team whose proven system has helped hundreds of married Christians go from crisis to closeness quickly without rehashing the past.
Each episode, what we're going to do is just share a real conversation. We're going to also share some of God's truth with you each time. And then also, we want to include practical tools to help you rebuild the marriage that you were created for. Welcome back to episode 4 of the Turnaround Marriage Podcast. Scott and I are excited to help you. If you are a married Christian and you are fighting about the same things over and over again, and you have a lot of unresolved conflict, maybe you feel like you're arguing about the chores or about sex or about work or the kids or even money, we're going to help you to discover what you're actually arguing about and show you how to go from reacting to reconnecting and reconciling. So buckle up for episode number 4.
Absolutely. And we're going to get real today. We're just going to let you into some of our world. And honestly, the thing is, people come to us all the time and they get on the phones with us and they identify the things that they've been arguing about, right? And that's led to miscommunication, misunderstanding. And so often it feels like, hey, we're arguing about finances and we can't get past that. And it feels like the finances, or maybe they're at odds about how to raise the kids. It's particularly even harder when they've, blended families. It's even exponentially harder in situations like that. Or they can be arguing about where they're going to go on vacation or making a decision. They could go on and on about the things in their world that feel like that is the heart of the matter. And to them it is. But we're here to say that it may be a problem unto itself, but it is not the core problem. It's symptomatic of the underlying problems. And we're living proof of that, aren't we?
That's right. Yeah, we had a pretty good argument the other day after getting back from dropping our baby daughter at college, and we got into it and we got heated, and we were both upset, we were both reacting, and we had to take our own medicine, didn't we? Yeah. And the good thing to know that if you are stuck in a pattern of cycle, if you're stuck in a cycle of miscommunicating and having unresolved conflict, you can actually learn how to finally resolve it. You can actually learn to get underneath the surface level things that it feels like you're arguing about. And we're going to show you how to go deeper on today's episode. So if you're new here, we're Scott and Rachel Laurie. We're co-founders of Turnaround Marriage, and we show married Christians how to go from crisis to closeness quickly. We have several programs that we bring people in, transformational Christian programs that use a beautiful blend of neuroscience and biblical wisdom to help Christians get close quickly and heal their marriages. Absolutely. So we're excited to dive in.
And heal some of these specific issues, get to the heart of the matter instead of just trying to hit the surface. It's like if you're just putting Band-Aids on the wounds and underneath it's festering or it's dirty, that's not going to heal very well, no matter how many Band-Aids you have. And so it's very important that we get to the heart of the matter. And for us, if we're just honest here, it wasn't just a little argument. We noticed ourselves pretty heated. This was a few weeks ago. Maybe that's why we haven't had a podcast in a couple of weeks.
We've been MIA.
it was not it didn't go on and on for days, but there was one particular day where we were really at odds, unlike we had been for a long time. And honestly, I don't even remember what we were arguing about, but I remember looking at each other's eyes and the blood was coming to my face. The blood was coming to your face. We were not happy with one another. And we had 6 or 7 things that we were really getting nitpicky about. And it really led to me feeling disconnected from you and you disconnected from me. And as we sat there, we actually gave ourselves a little bit of time apart to come back together, which I think was very helpful. But it felt like all of the past where we felt so hopeless, all of the past where I looked in your eyes and I was so distant from you, and it felt like, oh my goodness, here we go again, right? It was just bringing up a lot of the past. And the truth was we didn't have to stay there. And the truth was the things we were arguing about, they weren't really the heart of the matter either. Case in point, we don't even remember what they were, right?
It's true. And in those visceral moments when you feel your body reacting and you remember your nervous system is doing its job, it is saying warning, activation. Like, I remember this, like I'm about to get hurt or we're about to go back to those old places.
Right.
And I know that's what was happening for us.
Oh, for sure.
And so what was so helpful for us is we went through our own medicine, and we're going to walk you through what that looks like on today's episode. So what I'd love to do is first let's talk about why arguments repeat, right? Why we get into these cycles where it feels like we're arguing about the same things over and over again, right? And it's because, as I said, our nervous system is working just fine. Our nervous system is actually reminding us. And what happens when something comes up and we feel triggered? Aren't we all triggered by the word? But when we feel triggered and activated, what's happening is the back part of our brain, the amygdala, which stores fear and emotion, the amygdala is our warning center, and it's going off and it's going, warning, warning. And what happens when that happens? The frontal lobe just shuts down, goes offline.
Right.
We can't access logic and reasoning. We feel our bodies reacting. Guess what? Our adrenal glands are pumping cortisol and epinephrine, and we're just, we're kind of feeling our bodies respond. And what's happening is that as those emotions take over, logic is shutting down, and we don't even hear each other anymore because you can't hear each other and you can't listen when this isn't working.
Right. And maybe you've even asked or thought in your own mind, my spouse doesn't even seem like they're making sense. They might not be, right? Because they're not even using that part of their mind. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's talk about what's really going on underneath. It's not really about the chores. It's not really about the kids or really about money. What is it really?
Well, it can feel especially like it is those things if you keep talking about them. If it's for years, like the one point that you keep arguing about, or there's one thing that you just can't get past. And it so often can really feel like that. But usually behind the scenes, it's deeper. It's about our needs not being met by the other person. And it's not that these are things that we just want. It's what we need in the context of marriage. It's how we're wired. And male and female, despite what our culture says, not only are they distinctly different, we're distinctly different in our wiring and the way that we process and feel love. So behind the scenes, there are the questions, do you love me? Right? The questions of, do you respect me? Do you look up to me? Do you hear me? Do you prioritize you and I and me specifically? Like, do you value my opinion? Do you value me even? So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And one of the big ones can be, can I trust you? Right. And if there's been a long time that you've not been connecting, like all these things, there may not be like fully conscious thoughts that you're thinking, I wonder, can I trust him right now? But usually if there has been a season or maybe months or years where you've been starving, or both of you have been starving in your marriage, usually you are, the way I put it is they're clamoring for their needs to be met. And when your needs aren't being met, it's sometimes like if you're really, really hungry and you were, to come to the kitchen after being gone all day, you might not be waiting for dinner. You're just like looking for some nuts or a snack even before dinner. You're looking for anything that you can get your hands on. And so it might not be very pretty when you're trying to get from the other person what you actually need. And then sometimes the very worst version of you can show up in those moments.
That's such a good analogy of just like being starving. Or it can also feel like you're drowning. You're underwater. You can't get air. And so you're doing everything you can to get that need met. And so for the believer, though, we don't need just simply communication skills, which are important. We get to partner with the Holy Spirit. We get to have him working in our heart and in our life, giving us one of the gifts of the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. And we can develop self-control around our emotional state, around the words that we're using, around holding our tongue, right? And so so what we'd love to do is kind of talk about Ephesians chapter 5. I was talking about this yesterday in one of my lives on TikTok about what Ephesians 5 really means, especially for Christian wives. And, so often we argue about what those verses talk about when Paul is teaching how husbands should love their wives the way that Christ loves the church, and the way that wives should really honor their husbands, the way that the church honors and follows the Lord Jesus. And so if we're operating in that love and respect cycle, then it's much easier for us to actually hear and respond in love and respect. But if that amygdala is going off, and if frontal lobe has gone offline, we can't do anything. Our bodies are reacting, and we're not going to get anywhere.
So the scriptures actually speak to a very healthy cycle of nourishment in the context of marriage. And if we're not in those cycles, and we're in vicious cycles where I'm starving, and then therefore I'm starving my spouse, because if she isn't giving to me what I need, well, I'm not going to give it to her, if that's in any way part of the equation, and you're both are starving, this is not a cycle of encouragement, of nourishment, of trust or love. And it can feel like it's this one thing we're talking about, and over the course of years that becomes the theme, but it was never really about that to begin with. It really has been that you've been starving. And so Ephesians 5 really is giving to us a cycle of nourishment. It isn't just what God is telling us to do. It's what we actually need from one another. And so by walking in obedience there, it isn't just, okay, God, I'm going to do this, but it's also like God's design for how a woman is wired, how a man is wired.
Yes. It
Makes a
wasn't
big
Paul
difference.
smart and inspired to pen those words? And of course, both husbands and wives need both love and respect. But often the way a husband will receive love is through honor and respect, admiration and appreciation. And often the way a wife will feel respected is if she's loved, pursued, protected, if she feels secure, if she feels emotionally safe. And so, here's the reality. When it feels like we're arguing about money, probably what we're arguing about is our values. I value this and you value that. Wait, why are you spending your money on that? I thought we were going to save. Wait a minute, you don't want adventure? How come you won't let me book the trip? Right? We're really arguing about, what do we value as a couple? When we're arguing about sex, it can feel like we're arguing about, well, you don't ever pursue me. Well, how come you always say no? Why is it always your way? But really, if we go a level deeper, we're really arguing about desire. Do you desire me? Do we feel connected? Am I emotionally safe with you? Do you care about me in this equation, or are you just using me? Right? So we're often arguing about that. If it's the chores, which often that can be an issue for couples. It's like, wait, I do everything. I'm home all day long. I'm doing all this. And the husband comes up, well, I do the cars and the garage and the this and that. And it's like, I work all day. What are we really arguing about? We're arguing about, do you appreciate me? Do you take me for granted? Do you value what I bring to our relationship? Right? Or if it's about children, it could be, are we arguing? Really, is it like, are we a team here? Are you going to make me always be the bad guy and the disciplinarian? Do we have the same values as far as what we want to instill in our children? So it's always one or two levels deeper. And that's what you got to get to the heart of in the midst of an argument.
It's so true. And just to take it one step further, when you take those examples that you gave, you're spot on. Those are oftentimes things that people are arguing about. The woman and the man are each looking at these things differently. And so for a man, usually, not always, but usually sex is like way easier. It's actually a path, even if you've been arguing, a path to reconnection with his wife. For a wife, it feels like if he just wants to have sex and there's not connection and there's not emotional connection, she feels very much, sometimes even violated, sometimes feeling like dirty, because it's incongruent with the way that she's wired. And so they can be arguing about that and who's right and who's wrong. Like both of them can be. Same thing with money. Like a man has the weight of, he knows inherently that he is to lead his family and lead his wife. He knows inherently that if he doesn't work, he's worse than an unbeliever. He knows inherently that he is the main provider. Yes, they're a team. Yes, they need to figure these things out. Money they have to figure out differently. And a wife is going to think about it more from a sense of security, not always, but oftentimes. So these are just some case in points where with kids, even that's a whole nother one. Like she's going to be more of the protector. He's going to be oftentimes more of a disciplinarian. Both of those are needed, right? And then the chores, finding those roles within the context of your home. So even more so when we have male and female coming into this, it's a differing of not just needs, but a differing of perspectives too.
That's such a good point. And which is why in the greatest commandments, when Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, that's second command.
Right.
Well, your first neighbor is your spouse, as we often say. And to love your neighbor, your spouse, as yourself means you have to understand them. You have to know how they're wired, what they need, what their tendencies are, their weaknesses, their strengths, their desires. And to be able to love them is to know them and to nurture that part of them that only you can as their spouse. So that's such a good point about husbands and wives. So why don't we walk through some steps on what we can do in the heat of the moment when stuff hits the fan, as it could any day of the week.
Absolutely. And for us, we realized, by the way, just to go back to that story for a moment, that there was a lot behind the scenes that was going on.
Oh, yeah.
It was so much more than what we were talking about. Really, a lot of it was what they were grieving, and we both had needs around the grief, and we weren't fulfilling those needs in each other. And so it looked not very pretty.
Yeah.
Probably one of the biggest arguments that we've had in a few years. It didn't last days, though. It was just a few hours. By God's grace, we're able to navigate that. So,
yeah, could I add to that?
Sure.
Because it's a good point of when you drop your baby girl off, and it's like 18 years flies by. How many of you guys have dropped off your baby or one of your last babies? We still have 2 boys at home, but 4 of our 6 children are out of the house and grown and starting their lives and building families and all that. And so the grief was a real aspect of that we were feeling that grief, but stuffing it down. And so when you stuff those emotions, oftentimes the emotions rise a lot faster.
Absolutely.
And conflict can hit real fast. So if you're not regularly paying attention to and noticing the emotions that are coming up for you, if you tend to stuff or numb or whatever, you're going to be quicker to anger. You're going to be quicker to react just because.
And thus we were.
Yeah, just because your cup is already like over the brim, and so anything little can tip out and spill out what's inside.
So what does not work in a situation like that is when everything is heightened and the blood is flowing and you're upset and trying to solve that when your nervous system is all over the place, it's actually the worst thing you can do because it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So number one, what you can do, what you need to do, what's absolutely essential is you have to find calm for your nervous system. It is impossible to think rationally when you don't have oxygen in your lungs and therefore in your brain. Mm-hmm. So number one, what do we do first, Rach?
We got to breathe and we've got to pause. And, depending on how far ramped up you already are, you might need a 20-minute break. If you go 0 to 100 and you're just already feeling like your blood boiling, you can't change the biochemistry for about 20 minutes. It'll take your body to settle back down and get back to normal. Right. And so, but if it's starting to ramp, you can just simply, number one, just pause and breathe and whisper a prayer. Lord, help me to have ears to hear. Yeah. Help me to have eyes to see what my spouse needs, not just worry about my point of view. Yeah. And just take a breath. As you said, our brains need oxygen in order to think and process and access the problem solving part of our brain.
Yes, it's so true. And so, and if that moment, that's the first step, we tend to think, why is she doing that? Or why did she say that, right? That's what we tend to do. But really what we need to do is notice after we're getting some oxygen in our lungs, finding some calm and peace, is to begin noticing, okay, what is actually going on here? What's going on in me? Not just what they said, which is our first inclination, but what is it that you're feeling? Mm-hmm. Is it anger? And why so? What's going on behind the scenes for you? Nobody knows more than you. And of course, you can ask the Holy Spirit to enter into that conversation as well in the midst of whatever you're facing.
Right. So tapping into what is that emotion that you're feeling? And often it feels like it's just anger, but usually anger is covering up something underneath,
Right.
right? Anger is a powerful emotion that can help us to feel strong when our boundaries have been violated or when we feel wounded. But underneath, if you get underneath the anger, usually there's like shame or there's hurt or
Yeah.
there's disappointment or like, how could you do that? We could just be puzzled or bewildered or we could even feel anxious or fearful about a situation that's coming up. So even just naming the emotion can help bring the frontal lobe back online,
Totally.
can help to
This
kind
is
of
huge.
quiet that amygdala and settle your body down. And yeah, you can even just say, I'm starting to feel myself getting defensive, or I'm starting to feel really upset. Could we take a little break? Or could you say that a different way? Just naming the emotion can help to lower the temperature, so to speak.
Yeah. And then the next step is to communicate that to each other. Like what is going on? And there is nothing that will cut me to the core like if you look at me, maybe tears in your eyes, or there's truth when you've got clarity about what's going on for you. If you say to me, Scott, I'm just really sad. Or if you said, I've been scared, or like whatever strong emotion, when you tell me that directly, the man of honor really wants to show up because I see you hurting. And I that's the last thing I want. And if any way I cause that, I'm realizing, she's afraid. There's a lot more going on here than just what's been spoken. And you have a need. And I've been keeping you from that or causing it. And all that I really, usually what you need is not like some sermon or me to talk it out with you as much as you need for me to be present and not even to solve all of that, argument in that moment, but more so to pursue you and your heart. Equally so if I do the same, right?
Yeah. And you said something interesting. You said, if I were to say, I feel fearful, I feel hurt, I feel sad, rather than you always hurt
Oh,
me,
yes.
you always infuriate me, you
Totally
always.
different.
So the I statements versus the you statements make a big difference, because otherwise we get defensive and we want to defend ourselves and say that's not true, I didn't do it, and minimize whatever it is that happened. But when we can just own our own side and say the thing, it really can help bring resolution. As you said, calling out the honorable version of the other person. I know you care about me and I want you to listen to me in this moment. Can you hear my heart? Don't hear what I'm not saying. And so, yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
So what do we do next?
Well, and then that's a great starting point, right? And so then it's not about communicating, you need to understand me, you need to listen to me. When you can seek to understand instead of seeking to be understood, it can really change the dynamics pretty quickly. And you think about the cycle of nourishment, the way God has designed it. If even one of you chooses in that moment to give to the other person what they need, if only one does it, it breaks the cycle, right? And it brings about, instead of a vicious cycle, a cycle of nourishment. And right. And so, for example, if you were the first one to kind of break things in the conversation, and you were the one to say, wow, Scott, I realize there's a lot coming up for you as a dad dropping off your daughter. And I'm sure to some degree you did that. And then in me, that's just like, oh, she gets it now. What am I doing? And the honorable guy in me, you're calling out by virtue of seeking to understand me, instead of you seeking your own needs to be met first. And then I, in turn, desire to give to you back what you are given to me, what a female needs. And when we do that, it's like not only are we being obedient to the Lord, but it's bringing about nourishment to my wife and to me and to our marriage.
Yeah. It's like the principle of sowing and reaping,
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're sowing understanding, you can get understanding. You can begin feeling understood
Right.
by your spouse. And that's such a good point.
It's a biblical idea too.
For sure. For sure.
And Proverbs 15, like a gentle answer. It means the world turns away wrath, or depending on how you look at that verse, but turns away how we're looking at that
Mhm.
quickly.
Yeah.
And gentleness in that moment is often what the other person needs. Not always,
Hmm.
but often.
Yeah. And it's one of the fruit of the Spirit that we
Yes.
can ask for more
But
of.
you don't know. You don't know who my spouse is. Right.
Yes, but God is so good. He gives us everything we need for life and godliness. He gives us His word. He gives us His spirit. He gives us His very self. And
Yeah.
often He will give us others who can walk with us. Because,
Mhm.
for those in our group coaching program, we have an incredible group of clients that we work with that are really, their desire is to break these cycles once and for all,
Yeah.
because they recognize they're stuck in these patterns, so they have the same fights over and over again. And so what we do is we teach them these principles and we help them go deep in their situation.
Yeah.
So that's so beautiful. And you said something else, when seeking to be understood versus
Mhm.
to understand versus just being understood is such a powerful idea. But the other part of that, I just totally lost my train of thought. I'm trying to remember. Hang on. Seek to understand. Oh, but the other part of that is where we could get really curious with our partner versus just being critical.
Mhm.
It's like when we've been hurt or we've been disappointed in some aspect of our marriage, often our spouse doesn't even know. They don't even know what they did. So we could get curious with them. Hey, I'm curious, did you notice XYZ? Or I'm curious, like, I noticed things are off with you. What's coming up for you? Rather than you always this way, or you're so that, or, you know,
Yeah.
besides criticism, the curiosity can go so far
Oh, it's
to
so
help
true.
bring understanding.
And our best clients, we have amazing ones right now. The best ones are always the ones that recognize I have a sinful nature that's getting in the way and I want to change that, right? And
Hmm.
I realize that I want my marriage to be different. I want to leave a lasting legacy with my kids and grandkids. The ones we can't help are the ones that say, well, it's just all my spouse, which of course is a ridiculous idea,
Hmm.
right? Never, ever, ever is it just one person who is solely at fault.
Hmm.
And so we're recognizing that, when people come to us and they want things to be different, desiring that from a place of honor is a great place to start. Seeking the Lord's hand, his help in the midst of that. And usually, if we have these patterns that were given to us, handed down to us, the examples that we were given that were not so good, or maybe we never really even had a good example,
Hmm.
like we get really, really practical. And, it makes me think of Sandra and David, who came to us, one of our
Hmm.
senior couples that came through our program. And
In their 80s.
yeah,
Okay. How cool is that?
we loved it. And
Love them so much.
absolutely. And when they came to us, it was like some of the challenges and some of the patterns had crept in. The challenges of getting older, what that looked like in retirement, spending a lot more time together, having limitations, uh, planning for the future, all those range of thoughts and emotions were really getting in the way. And it felt like a lot of those things were insurmountable. But as we've been saying today, it felt like those were the key problems when in reality, they were the symptoms of the underlying needs that they were not having met between the two of them.
Hmm.
And when they came in and they realized that they needed to really tap into the Spirit of God and really tap into the people of honor that they were, and really seek to understand and not to be understood, that they could bring back the cycles of nourishment between the two of them, and everything changed
Hmm.
pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah. And then they were able to decide and agree on where they were going to move to a beautiful
Hmm.
retirement community. Now they're enjoying connection and closeness in this beautiful season of their marriage. And
Yeah.
it's because they really showed up coachable and really humble to the Spirit of God
Hmm.
and really desiring Him to be at the center of their marriage.
Yeah.
So, an old argument might sound like, "Oh, you never help with the kids," or, you always, push me away when I want to make love to you or whatever. But a new way we could approach that would be, hey, I feel overwhelmed tonight. Could you help me with the bedtime routine? Or, hey, I'm feeling really distant from you. Could we make time to connect? It's
Right.
it's so much as in how we're saying it and the heart behind of what we're saying. And so as we wrap up today, we want to just encourage you that the things you think you're arguing about are really not those things. It is always much deeper, one, two, or three levels deeper. Your values. Are you loved? Are you pursued? Are you seen? Are you safe? Are you honored? Are you appreciated? Do you matter to each other? That's the real question that's happening. So when you're feeling, the angst of going 0 to 100 and these things have been unresolved, maybe you feel like you need help. Yeah, what should folks like that do?
Well, it's coming to mind. We were talking to some of our clients last night, and somebody shared that, just reiterating something we had said, which is our highest aim is not to just reduce conflict. It's actually to handle conflict well.
Hmm.
That's the key. And we actually did handle that conflict pretty well, considering, even though it was a large argument, we were able to handle it that day. Right. And so, what I would want to convey to folks who realize they want to do things different, it isn't just about like, we just don't want to, we want to get away from this arguing. Really, conflict's inevitable. You have two married sinners, you have two married sinners. And it's about bringing the gospel and about bringing the Lord into the middle of that,
Hmm.
middle of your home, middle of your marriage. And if you're out there and it's like, yeah, that's what I want to do, then we actually can help you, right? If that's why you guys you want to shift the way to get out of some of those, vicious cycles that you've been in and want to do things differently, absolutely reach out. You guys, we offer a breakthrough call where we get on the phone and we will get massive clarity about why and where you've been stuck, and not just talk about, the surface stuff, but get underneath it and help you to see where it's been costing you, how it's been costing you, why you've been stuck. And people tell us all the time, I got more clarity in these few moments with you guys than I have in talking to years with the therapist. We're going to get massive clarity around that. And then we're also going to talk about, where do you want it to go? How do you want to honor the Lord in your marriage? Like, what legacy do you want to leave behind? What example do you want your kids and your grandkids to see? And then we'll talk about whether we're a good fit for working together. And if we are, we're totally going to talk about where that would lead and how we could best work together and what that would look like being in one of our signature programs.
Hmm. Yeah. So if that's you, you can book a call at turnaroundmarriage.com/call. Pick a spot. You can definitely be there. If your spouse is willing to work on the marriage, make sure you and your spouse are on that phone call. You've got an hour of distraction-free time where you're not driving, you're not doing something else.
Right.
And if your spouse is not willing, though, here's the reality. As Scott said earlier, one person can break the cycles. We've seen that over and over again. Of course, we'd love to have both people on board, but if your spouse is shut down or withdrawn or not open, we can't bring them kicking and screaming, but we can help you
Right.
and show you how to change the dynamics. So turnaroundmarriage.com/call, pick a time. We will be there to help you and get you that clarity. So until next time,
God
we'll see you
bless.
soon.
Take care.